Psychology.
And psychology.
Yeah.
And and over the rain, Craig has done events for us in the past on topics of resilience, and so it was so well received, we wanted to bring him back. And so he is an expert in this field, and
Yeah, I like to think of myself as an expert in the field. I don't know how close I am there yet, but I like the title. Okay, so my workshop's titled Beating Workplace Stress. So today we're going to be talking, generally how you can go about beating workplace stress. Kind of continue with the introduction. Who am I and what do I know about stress? Like you said, I'm a graduate student in industrial organizational psychology here at the university. And what is IO psychology? Well, basically we study how people behave at work. I'm doing my second year master's here, continuing on to the PhD, hopefully, in the near future to keep studying my research, which aligns with emotion regulation and well-being very generally. So I look at how people manage their own emotions and other people's emotions in the workplace. And I also look how that relates to people's well-being, things like stress, whether they're flourishing in their environment. And then later on, I want to link that to how people perform in their job. So how effective people are based on how good they are at managing their emotions, et cetera, et cetera. And like many of you here, or I'm guessing probably all of you here, I also work at the university. So I've experienced workplace stress firsthand. I'm a teaching assistant doing 2 full TA positions this year. So I have lots going on in terms of work and workplace stress. Okay, so I want to ask everybody, what do you think of when you think of workplace stress? Take a few minutes, take a few moments.
Overload.
Deadline overload, yes.
priority management.
Priority management, good, good. Yep. Things out of your control. Yes, exactly. So those are all great examples of workplace stress and the labels that we typically associate to it. The Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety has defined workplace stress as harmful and physical and emotional responses that happen when there's a conflict between job demands on the employee, so things like deadlines, competing demands, and the amount of control an employee has over meeting these demands. So when you don't have enough time to meet these deadlines, then that's when your control over this demand doesn't actually line up and you become stressed. So to get everybody in a talking mood, I want to do a couple icebreakers really quickly. I want you to introduce yourself to somebody you may not know, or probably everybody knows each other here, in which case introduce yourself, it's still the same. Then on a scale of 1 to 10, tell the other person how stressed you are right now in this moment in this room. Then what is one thing that you've been stressed about recently, and what is one effective that you deal with stress?
Are we doing this in pairs or are we just going to
Pairs, groups, yeah, we can yell it back and forth, yeah.
We know each other, so I'll go over there.
Yeah, great.
Sounds good. Hi. Hi. I'm Kate. Kate, nice to meet you. I'm Heidi. Hi, Heidi. I work in alumni affairs and development. Oh, I used to work in alumni affairs. Oh, no way! I know all about your stress. Oh my gosh.
Cooper.
Okay. Okay, I've heard the name.
I was my portfolio. I was a AAM.
Yeah.
My portfolio was what Jan does now. So
Oh, okay.
Seesaw and college cards. Before that, I was at UC.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. So now I'm in co-op and career.
Oh, okay.
And I'm a career advisor.
Excellent. My daughter's a co-op student.
Oh, really?
Yes,
What
she's in her
program?
she's in software engineering.
Okay.
And she's in her first placement
Awesome.
right now.
So she got a job from her first work term.
Yeah. Well, her first work term was supposed to be summer.
Yeah.
She didn't get a job for summer,
It's not.
but she got one for fall, and
Good.
it's amazing, and
Awesome.
she's doing awesome. So
Good.
we're very happy.
So, do you report to Jason?
So I do report to Jason right now, but just so you know, that so there's 2 Heidis. So Heidi Muller is actually Jason's assistant,
Yeah.
and she just got back from mat leave. I'm Heidi Ferris, and I used to report to Karen.
Oh, okay.
So I reported to Karen. I was her EA,
She's not
and
here.
she's gone. She's at Queens.
Yeah.
So then I reported to Audrey Jamal, who is now over here as COS.
Yeah.
So now I'm back to reporting to Jason.
Oh, okay.
But my role is like evolving and changing, and so I'm still working on the major gift side. I'm now working with the new director, but I'm also working, you probably know, the prospect management office. So I'm working on the prospect management office now, and one of my big deliverables, I guess, is to change it and to add new processes and streamline processes and get it running more efficiently than it currently is.
So do you report to Jennifer Baird on that part?
No. I report to Jason and I work with Jennifer, but I don't report to the staff.
I'm also Jennifer Baird on that.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, how? Yeah.
Yeah, small world.
Anyway,
Sorry, I forget what we were supposed to do, but.
we're just having a conversation. We're not even doing the.
Okay, well, I'm going to cut you off anyways, and we can get back to that later. Does anybody want to share one effective way that they cope with stress?
Well, I've got one. I
Okay.
talk about it.
You talk about it with other people that you work with, family, coworkers? Okay, great. Anybody else?
We were talking a lot about exercise, doing something physical.
Okay.
That's such a great release.
Yes.
And tap
Yes.
negative energy.
Definitely. I would 100% agree and do the same.
Yeah, don't do enough of it.
So this statistic may be kind of alarming, depending on what you rated your stress on a 1 out of 10. A survey of a very substantial number of Canadian workers found that 27%, or almost 4 million of us, claim to have high to extreme levels of stress on a daily basis. So that means that 1 in 4 workers report probably being around an 8 or 9 or a 10 on a 1 to 10 scale of stress on a daily basis.
Are we just talking about negative stress, or are we talking about positive stress?
Stress in general.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not defined.
It's not defined.
Okay.
Yes. But you would assume that many people, when they think of stress, think primarily of the negative stress.
Right.
So you would imagine that a large portion of those people are experiencing extreme stress, not the kind that makes you more productive, but the kind that's somewhat debilitating. And then when asked, where does the stress come from? 62% said that work itself is the main source of their stress, more so than finances, time, and family, by quite a large margin. With that in mind, I have one main goal today for this workshop, and that is for you to leave thinking differently about stress. So, I could tell you that things like exercise and healthy eating and sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night are great ways to manage stress, which they are, because they definitely are. You're found to be happier, more productive, and healthier when you do all these things. But lots of people still do these things, and they still feel stressed. So there has to be something more to managing stress than just doing these types of activities. But it's been found that if you actually think differently about stress, things won't seem as stressful, and then there won't be so much stress that you have to beat. And now, keeping that in mind, I want to do a really short personality survey with you guys. I'm going to hand it out now and give you some really brief instructions. And then this will tie back into stress as soon as you are done. So the instructions read that in each box of 4, you want to circle the number adjacent to the line that is most like you, as well as in the column for the least, the number that is least like you. So don't worry about the numbers. Imagine that that was just A, B, C, and D. Just circle next to whatever line is most like you and whichever line is least like you in the corresponding columns.
I've done this before, and this is the one personality assessment.
The key is not to think about it too much.
Yeah.
Whatever comes to your head first,
Yeah.
if you just think the trusting enthusiastic is you, circle it. Don't spend too much time wavering between one or the other. So it looks like most of us are finishing up. If not, we can take a few more minutes after I say a little bit to go over it and finish it. So after you've put the numbers in the rows, the way it works is you circle in the graphs which numbers. And then whichever numbers are the highest, that's thought to be your most dominating personality profile. So does anybody have any questions about finding their results? So after you have the numbers in the row, you then transfer those, so everything in the L, you transfer to the graph on the right side. And then for D, if you have a 4, you circle the number 4 in D. For I, if you have a 3, you circle the 3. And then whichever number is the highest is thought to be the highest in the graph, is thought to be your dominating personality profile. Has anyone taken DISC before? Some nods. Has anyone taken a personality test before? So everyone's sort of familiar with how this process is. So DISC was created by a psychologist and then was turned into this type of behavioral assessment by an IO psychologist, which is what I study. And DISC is one of the most popular personality measures that's used. It's used widely for things like leadership, team building, selection purposes. And we'll get into how it touches into stress soon. But essentially, this is what the different profiles look like. So if you're high on dominance, you're more direct, results-oriented, firm. If you're high on I, which is influence, outgoing, enthusiastic, optimistic. And of course, you can be varying levels of these traits. So you can be, let's say, over here. So pretty high on D, but also sort of close to I. And then there's also conscientiousness and steadiness. How is everybody now thinking about their personality results? Are people surprised? Sort of in line with what you would have imagined about yourself? And this is so well used that we even have some personality profiles for a bunch of celebrities. So people like Jerry Seinfeld, Oprah, Brad Pitt, Bill Gates have all been taken these, apparently, and we've got the results for it. So a little bit more. A dominance is a person who places emphasis on accomplishing results, the bottom line, confidence. People who are high in influence place emphasis on influencing and persuading others, openness in relationships. Conscientiousness is emphasis on cooperation. And steadiness is on quality, accuracy, expertise, and competency. And it's been found that your DISC personality style has been proposed to explain how you communicate, who you are as a leader, how well and how much you like working in teams, and even what your habits are when you're eating at a restaurant. Pretty crazy stuff. But it's also been tied into how you experience, perceive, and manage stress. So really the point of this exercise is, one, to see how you manage stress and you perceive stress in your own way, but then also to understand that people experience stress very differently. Some things that stress certain people may not stress others at all, and then your reactions to stress can be completely different. So someone could be experiencing a lot of stress and you may not even know because they're not the type of person who shows that stress.
It's interesting when you straddle two,
Mm-hmm.
if you're high on one and then a little lower, but still high on the other one, that it's like, so multiple things. So then it's like, okay, so what? Yeah.
What is it
So
that
I
stresses
think
you?
I think, because I think with personality assessments too, it's all about what situation you're in at the time as to how you react.
To the personality test or to stressors?
To the, so if you're like two different things,
Mm-hmm.
then, because sometimes I'm one way and
Yes.
sometimes I'm another way based on the situation. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why it came up that way.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Depending on the context, so if you're at work or in your family life, and yeah, really just depending on maybe your mood for that day really changes what your reaction and how you may experience a stressor. So I want to give you an opportunity to, if you want, continue reflecting on how these stressors and reactions align with the personality profile that you came up with. And then to the pair that you were talking with before, or just with each other. Explain how these stressors and reactions, reactions that you experience relate to your DISC personality. So if you're high on I, do you feel that you have these stressors and this is how you react? Does it align or does it not?
Craig, I had a point of clarification.
Yeah.
So graph 1 is, this is expected of me.
Yes.
So assuming the highest number in that range, but the second graph,
Mm-hmm.
because the numbers are reversed, I guess the numbers are irrelevant, it's still whatever's highest.
It's still whatever the highest, yes. Yeah. So the idea is that you perceive yourself in an ideal way. So you're going to select the things that you think you should be. And then that's what's going to come up with the graph on the left. That's what's expected of me, or what your ideal self is. And then the expectation is that whatever you say is the least like you, the opposite of that is how you actually are.
Really?
Yes, based on this measure. Yes. So if you're looking at the left, that's what your ideal type of personality would be. On the right, that is what they expect your personality to be closest to in reality. What did yours come up with?
DI, and then SC on it. Well, and then, so is it your highest one?
Yeah, so the highest ones,
On both charts.
yes, like highest in positioning.
CS.
And you'd say
Totally opposite.
totally opposite.
That's not.
Not you?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
I'm an S on both.
And what do you think?
That's pretty bang on.
Pretty bang on?
Yeah, I was an S on both too. I was an S on the left and then an SC on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I would say
So this is not to say that you're completely out of whack with how you are and how you think you should be. The personality measure, this one is one that was freely available online, and these haven't been as validated as well as some of the other ones. So one of the disclaimers you're supposed to say is that this isn't supposed to be used for really understanding yourself at a very deep level. It's mostly for the exercise of seeing that people react to stress different ways, and then maybe if it does align, then you can kind of take into consideration how people with that personality actually come up with solutions to these reactors and these stressors.
It's funny because
Yeah.
so those stressors and those reactions and those solutions are what I do
Okay.
for D&I, but I don't know. I guess I'm both. That's why it's
Yeah.
hard.
So for many people, when they do it, they find that they're high on similar ones between the two. Some people, just because of the fineness of the measure, can be kind of mixed in between the two, at which point it becomes a little bit more difficult to discern just from the personality results where you'd be exactly. But for me, I find myself,
All these things stress me.
and then some people just say, yeah, everything stresses me out. I find myself consistently along the I, and having looked into how DISC relates to stress, I found it actually pretty much aligned. Does anyone else feel that the solutions that are on here relate to how they deal with stress and react to stress?
I find it interesting because perceptively, I fall under the D, but then
Okay.
in actuality, I'm a D and a C,
Mhm.
but more so the D. But yeah, I find these solutions are ones, and it kind of triggers into what we were talking about before, but that exercising more is a default reaction, and it can be a perceived solution, but these are actually more realistic solutions to address the actual stressors. It's interesting.
Anyone else?
I'm an S, and I do find with the solutions.
Yeah.
That's naturally how I start to act.
Okay.
I am put in stressful situations.
Okay.
It's not my norm.
not your normal? Okay. And you're,
I'm just all over the place. So, yeah, I can take like this from here and that from there, and yeah, but But see, because it says I'm actually a C,
Mhm.
and those solutions.
Mhm.
Well, I guess, yeah, kind of.
So these may not necessarily be solutions that you do, but could also be solutions that would be helpful for you to do.
Better?
That could work better based on your personality. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Now, keeping these solutions in mind, I'm going to talk a little bit about perceiving stress. So there's this truth in life that's especially relevant to stress that a lot of people refuse to accept, and that is that you have very little control over many of the things that happen in your life. They're completely out of your hands, and you really can't influence them all that much. So some of the people who resist that truth become over-controlling and think that if they can gain enough control over people and situations, that they can prevent these stressors from happening to them. Others understand that they can't prevent bad things, but they worry about them anyways. So I'm going to hand out a worksheet where you indicate what are some of the things that are stressing you right now in regards to your work. And then closer to the bottom of the page, you indicate how important these stressors are to you and whether these stressors are something that you can control or you cannot control.
Because that's what happens every time I take it.
Yeah, with the disc personalities happened before. Yeah.
Don't really know.
That's one of the criticisms of it is for the people, because there is a substantial number of people who are just all over the place. And then it's like, what does it say to me? So
Yeah.
take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I do. I've taken a lot of these. different- I was in psychology, so.
Okay, yeah.
And then every company I worked in did a
Asked you to
different
do a
one, so-
different disc, yeah.
No, like.
Oh, different personality.
Color,
Okay,
Myers-Briggs.
yeah.
Like, so are we looking at this as, like, because I started to do it and then I went, oh, maybe I'm looking at it wrong. As the things that you don't want to do stress you out more than the things that you want to do?
No, it's what stressors are you experiencing on a daily basis at work, regardless of whether you can. So just what things are stressing you. Sorry, I'm not sure if I understand the question.
So, okay, so I started out thinking like heavy workload,
Mm-hmm.
change change within job, changes to duties, but that's not stressing me right now.
Okay.
But they are things that are happening.
Oh, okay. So you're only supposed to list them if they are stressing you.
Okay.
If they're things that are happening to you that aren't stressing you, then that's good,
Okay.
because then you hopefully don't need to worry about them. Okay.
Just because I think they can only hear your mic.
Okay. Yeah. Great. So we like to make lists of lots of things, to-do lists, reminders lists, grocery lists, but not as often do people actually list and systematically think about what it is that's stressing them. Do any of you ever really sit down and critically think about what it is, like concretely, that's stressing you on a daily basis or stressing you this week? Yeah, stress is kind of just this thing we feel like, you know, when you're stressed because like, you're anxious and you have all this work to do, you're not sleeping well, but nobody really attributes what the stress is, like where's the stress coming from. So when you do this, you systematically list your stressors, there's some things, some steps you can take at the bottom to try and alleviate some of the stressors you have or change the way you think about them. So one, determine whether the stressor is important to you. If it's not, try and let it go. If you're feeling stressed about it and then think, wait, this is not really something that I should be diverting my effort towards, forget about it. Try and let it go. And then, with the things that are important to you, determine whether you can or cannot control them. Focus on your influence. What behaviors can you make that you can change about the stressors, that you can change about the situation? And then differentiate between ruminating, which is repeatedly negative thinking about the same thing over and over again, and problem solving. Is your thinking actually helping you achieve overcoming the stressor, or are you simply just getting into a cycle of negative thoughts? And then take some time to address those stressors that you feel are important and that you do have at least some control over. For those things that are important to you that you can't control, practice stress management techniques, and then also try and avoid them or limit your exposure to them. And for my final exercise, has everyone ever heard of stop, start, continue exercises? They're often used for feedback. So in a workshop, you ask what things should you start doing in workshops and what things that are you doing well that you should continue. But I thought that this idea of stop, start, continue could also be useful for feedback for yourself. So feedback on how you manage stress. A lot of people maybe do things that they even know aren't effective stress management techniques. When you ask people, you always have to qualify effective stress management techniques, and everybody laughs because everyone knows and thinks about the things that they do that probably aren't as productive. So in this worksheet, I want you to write down some of the things that you're doing to manage your stress that you should stop because they aren't helping you. Creative ideas that maybe you've been thinking about doing, joining a new gym class, that you should start doing. And then things that work well for you for managing stress that you should continue doing. Yeah.
Shows all the stressors.
This one? So before I ask you guys to share, I'm going to share my own strategy because I just love telling people. So I started doing something to manage my stress over the summer, and it was sort of a chance happening. I came across a chance to adopt a dog. So I adopted an 8-year-old miniature Dachshund, and she's adorable. I love her. And I wasn't overly stressed, but I had, of course, a lot going on with school and with work, and I found that pretty much my time was completely dedicated to either school or exercising, and very little for like friends and family. So I had this opportunity to get a dog, and I thought, oh, it's a lot of work. Like, I'm gonna have to walk it every day. I don't know if I'm gonna want to do that. But then I thought maybe even just this responsibility would be a good way to focus on things other than school and exercise and family, on something that's just completely new to me. I've never had a dog before. So I did it, and now I spend at least like half an hour every day walking the dog, and a lot of other actually stress relieving things have come from it. So I bring her to school a lot, and just seeing how happy people look when they see her has also relieved a lot of my stress. So I think that's a cool thing that I've started doing, is bringing her around with me and taking care of a dog. Yeah. Does anyone else want to share some of the cool things that they think they could do to manage stress?
I kind of started yoga in the summer, but I didn't get into it fully. So my plan is, because usually I take walks at lunch to relieve my stress, but my plan is to join yoga gym here
Great.
over lunch, but that's my plan.
Well, hopefully by putting it into writing,
Yeah.
that'll motivate you to stick with the plan. So a couple things, well, a few things that I want to reiterate from the workshop today. One is that from the personality test, remember that the way you experience and manage stress is unique. So different people experience stress different ways, and that's perfectly okay. It's natural. Let go of the stressors that are not important to you, and try to limit your time spent worrying about the stressors you can't control. Only focus your energy on things that you can actually make a difference about. And then consider the things you do to manage your stress. You already find ways to successfully manage your stress, so keep doing them. Stop doing things that aren't contributing to your goals or aren't helping relieve your stress. And don't be afraid to constantly try new ways to manage your stress. And I want to leave you guys with a quote that I found to be very relevant, and there's a little bit of a backstory. So I'm going to let you guys read it, and then I'm going to go into a little bit of a storytelling moment. So one of my close friends that I actually did the workshop in the summer with, she's doing her PhD at a different university, and she actually also studies the same type of psychology as me. And right now in my program, I'm working on my master's thesis, and there's been some pretty significant issues with the thesis, so much so that I'm probably going to have to take a different direction. And now we're kind of getting close to graduation defending time, which is next summer. And as you can probably imagine, that is stressful, having to come up with a new idea, whatever. So I've told multiple people that I'm going through this, and everybody is so stressed for me. Like, I tell people, and the look on their face is just like stress. Everyone is like, how are you not so stressed? How are you not freaking out? Like, I would be crying if this was happening to me. So I was telling my friend how this was happening and everyone's reaction. And I was like trying to think of, why do people react so differently than I kind of do? And I guess she actually told me this quote: grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And she was like, I think this quote really speaks to you because you know that you can't change the things that are happening with your thesis. I mean, the things that are happening really are out of my control. And that I can change the things that I can. So working on coming up with a new idea and having the wisdom to know the difference. So she said that, I think this is something you're really good at, and that's how you manage to look a lot less stressed than everybody else that you tell. So I thought that if there's one thing that you guys take from this workshop, it would be this quote. So when you're thinking about stress, accept that some things you just simply can't change. Have the courage to make changes and do things to change things that you can, and then have the wisdom to know the difference between the two. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to stick around. Otherwise, thank you all for being so attentive and participating.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So if you do have questions, do let them know, but do ask them.
Did you do the regulating emotions?
Yes.
And were you talking about your friend that did that?
Yes.
with you? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.